You're welcome.
Everyone carries a journal on the Camino. This one's mine. Here in the front you see the instructions if somebody should find it in my backpack. And this is the very first entry I made on my very first Camino 2018. After so many years, the darn thing is full now, but I thought I'd share some of my meditations.
I will be dropping this video on May of 2026, but I'm recording this now on February 9th, 2026, some 3 months earlier. Yesterday was Super Bowl Sunday. It was Super Bowl 60, Seattle Seahawks versus New England Patriots. The Seahawks are my wife's favorite team. She lived in the Seattle-Tacoma area when this NFL franchise was established in 1976. After the expansion draft, Jim Zorn and Steve Largent spoke to her health class. That was some 50 years ago, and she has been a fan ever since. Suffice to say, she's pretty happy today. Her Seahawks lifted their second Lombardi trophy last night. Coincidentally, 1 year ago today, February 9th, 2025, my favorite team, the Philadelphia Eagles, won Super Bowl 59 and lifted their second Lombardi trophy. So in the span of 1 year, our two favorite teams have each won a Super Bowl. Now, why is this important? It's not. But these two Super Bowls bookend one of the most transformative 365 days of my life.
Once upon a time, I walked the earth in someone else's shoes.
But to summarize, between Super Bowl 59 and Super Bowl 60, I walked another Camino, which was more chaotic than calming. Also, my wife and I moved to Spain in a concatenation of chaos and crisis. Now, I know living in Spain is supposed to look like this. That's the edited version that expats share on social media, but in reality, living in Spain often looks like this, or like this, or like this. But something special happened to me in those 365 days. I developed a new awareness of time. And it all began with Super Bowl 59, which occurred a year ago. Now let me take you back there a moment, back to February 9th, 2025. 54 days earlier, Lauren announced that we were moving to Spain. 17 days after that, she had knee surgery. 36 days after that, we were boarding a plane to Singapore, where we would connect to Thailand. And on Super Bowl Sunday, when every other Philadelphia Eagles fan was settling in for the big game, I was lost in time somewhere over the Pacific Ocean. Now, what do I mean by lost in time? Well, I found that an interesting phenomenon happens when one takes a long international flight. Time loses meaning. You step on a plane in one time zone, one temporal state, and several hours later you step off the plane in another time zone, a different temporal state. In between these two temporal states, however, what time are you in? Take my flight, for instance. To get to Thailand, we flew from Los Angeles to Singapore, and the flight took 17 hours and 50 minutes. Let's just call it 18 hours in the air. Departure time from Los Angeles was 10:05 p.m. on a Saturday night. At the time of departure in Singapore, the local time was 2:05 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon. So what time was it for me? What day was it for me? Was it Saturday night or Sunday afternoon? Well, technically and physically, spatially, it was 10:05 p.m. on a Saturday night Pacific Coast time, and 18 hours later, it would be 4:05 p.m. on a Sunday night. The Super Bowl would be in the second quarter by that point. But here's the deal. Once time caught up with that second quarter of the Super Bowl, once the clock struck 4:05 p.m. on a Sunday night in Los Angeles, I would be in Singapore, where the local time would be 8:05 a.m. on a Monday morning. So if I began at 10:05 p.m. on Saturday night and ended at 8:05 a.m. on a Monday morning, in what time was I for the time in between? I mean, I was moving through physical space, backward across the international date line, passing through zones of divergent temporal measurement for 18 almost unendurable hours. But at any given moment, what time was it in my present reality? After about 10 hours on a flight this long, you lose your sense of reality. You become unstuck in time. Your body feels like it is 8 o'clock on a Sunday. Your mind, which has been trying to recalibrate to the time zone on the other end of your journey, wants to convince itself that it's midnight that Sunday evening. But what was really throwing me off at this point was that it was Super Bowl Sunday, one of my favorite days of the year. You may find this weird, but my life is measured in Super Bowl Sundays. If I live as long as my father did, that means I only have 23 Super Bowls left. 23 Super Bowls ago was Super Bowl 37, Bucks over Raiders. That seems like yesterday. What's more, I not only measure my time in Super Bowl Sundays, I measure those Sundays according to the rhythms of the day, preparing snacks, watching the pregame show, counting the minutes until kickoff, maybe even taking a nap because I ate too many snacks too soon. Super Bowl Sunday is a day of rituals for me. But when stranded in the air as the day unfolds, those rituals are painfully absent. Around the time we normally would be preparing snacks, our flight was 11 hours in, somewhere east of the Corral Trench. Now, what time was it? I have no idea. In Los Angeles, it was 8 a.m. At my home in Florida, it was 11 a.m. In Singapore, where we would land in about 7 hours, it was around 5 p.m. But what time was it in my present location? Again, no idea. My body was on Los Angeles time. My mind was trying to be in Singapore time, but neither time was real above the Corral Trench. No time was real. My life was no longer real. I had just spent the last 11 hours in a cramped space with a bunch of strangers, far enough above the earth for life to move on without me. I was deprived of the opportunity to mark the rhythms of Super Bowl Sunday, and that deprivation led to a detachment from everything in my reality. My home in Florida was no longer real. The decision to move to Spain was no longer real. Spain itself was no longer real. Only this dark and musty tube full of strangers. It was like that short story by Stephen King, The Jaunt, and the tale's terrifying final line, "It's longer than you think." The Super Bowl kicked off as we were coming in for a landing. Broadcast coverage of the game began on one of the channels of in-flight entertainment. I started to watch, but we were in an exit row and I would soon have to return my screen to the armrest of my seat. So for a painful 40 minutes, I strained to see if the Super Bowl was playing on one of the seat backs in front of me. I could only see one a few rows up, and I could barely make out the edge of that screen. In the Singapore airport, I checked the score as we walked. 7-zip, 10-zip, 17-zip, a chronicle of the day that was slipping past me. I was finally able to check in with the game on the flight from Singapore to Phuket. No snacks, no friends, no comfortable recliner, and I had been deprived the hours of build-up normally afforded a fan on Super Bowl Sunday. When we arrived in Phuket, we drove to the Big Buddha, which was blocked off because of construction. By the time we arrived, the game was over, and I no longer knew who I was. I'm told that deep meditation is kind of like that flight. Without the jet lag and the misery and the tube full of strangers who aren't breathing with you. I mean, it wasn't like the monks I heard meditating at the Om Shanti Brahma Kumari in the mountains of Nepal. In hindsight, I wonder if this 18-hour flight wasn't a gift from the spirit of the universe. An opportunity to check out of life, absolutely, to detach my identity and myself on a day when I'm most inclined to self-identification. Matthew Krause, American. Matthew Krause, football fan. Matthew Krause, Super Bowl fan. Eagles fan. Owner of a Nick Foles jersey. And by proxy, a champion because he roots for a championship team. Matthew Krause, enjoying the 59th Super Bowl in his 62nd year. All gone, like tears in the rain. I guess I'm not ready for heaven. I'm not ready to step off the wheel of samsara. In fact, I so cling to my identity that on August 10th, 2025, I gave myself the Sunday that I craved. I'm living in Barañain on the outskirts of Pamplona, and I subscribe to a German app called DAZN that allows me to watch all NFL games live. It also allowed me to watch the games of the previous season, including the entire American broadcast of Super Bowl 59, complete with the original commercials. I drew my shades and filled my home with snacks. I watched 5 hours of the original pregame broadcast on YouTube just to give the Sunday verisimilitude, and then I watched the game. And for a few short hours, I was no longer in Spain during a summer so unseasonably hot that the locals kept assuring me, "El calor no es normal." I was in America at a Super Bowl party, and the date and time are exactly 26 weeks in the past. So in a way, I kind of became lost in time again.
There's too much left for you to do, and don't let me hear you say life's taking you nowhere. There's too much left for you to do, and oh no, there's too much left for you to do, and oh no, there's too much left for